was dead to begin with. There is no doubt whatever about that. Old Marley was dead as a doornail. There is no doubt that Marley was dead. This must be distinctly understood, or nothing wonderful can come of the story I'm going to relate. If we were not perfectly convinced that Hamlet's father died before the play began, there would be nothing more remarkable in his taking a stroll at night.
Ooh, that was creepy and kind of, spooky. Welcome to the How Could You podcast. I'm Lauren Tocci.
And I am Charles Dickens.
No, you're not.
You know, I think we've already showed our allegiances on this episode. All right, I am Ryan Tocci.
And today we are going to, if you cannot tell by the opening of this, going to be talking about Scrooge. How could you Scrooge?
Yes, we are going to touch base with all the Christmas carols, past, present, and future.
Oh, I see what you did there.
You think I like
That's
that?
Good. How do you know how to predict the future?
There's a new movie in the making.
Oh, okay, well, that's exciting. Well, we will get there. Before we get there, though, we thought, we always start off with our Tocci takes, our recommendations of movies to you to watch, but we figured that, given that this is our seasonal episode, we thought we would do some of our top holiday favorites. So, Ryan Tocci, I'm going to ask you, what are your top 3 holiday movies?
Yeah, I think this is good because next episode's going to be all about 2021 and all the movies. So I feel like you're going to get a Tossi's Take episode. So I think you're right. I think just doing kind of our favorite Christmas movies or holiday movies is best. Mine pretty standard, I think. I'm going to go number 1. It's a Wonderful Life. I mean,
yeah.
How could you not?
Yeah.
2, A Christmas Story. I know not everybody loves it, but I love it.
Which I think is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just love the movie.
And number 3, I'm going to go Christmas Vacation. And, it just kind of brings up the question, if you don't know Christmas Vacation, you should listen to our episode from last week. Or last time.
Shameless plugs are tight.
Yeah, shameless plugs. We got a couple coming up. But I will say, this is a perfect episode for me, because really it's all things A Christmas Carol for me.
You make us watch 75 different versions of A Christmas Carol.
So that's why I didn't even put it into this, because there's too many.
And I'm very curious, because I know that's going to be an upcoming question, because I'm very curious what your actual favorite is, only because you do make us watch so many different versions of that same story.
But I want to know what your Tocci takes on holiday favorites are.
All right, so everyone who knows me knows that It's a Wonderful Life is my favorite holiday movie, if not one of my favorite all-time movies, period. So I thought I would go with my top 3 new class.
Oh, interesting.
Of movies that I think everyone should be watching this holiday season, and that is A Very Merry Christmas, because it has to be that someone else besides you and me and Amanda Dobbins from the Big Picture podcast have watched it. It's a delight. And it always puts me in a very festive mood. So I really recommend that. And it harkens back to if you like watching music holiday specials, if you remember those from your youth, or if you watch the new ones, like Michael Bublé always does one, Kelly Clarkson. I think there's normally like a CMA.
There's a Casey Musgraves one.
Oh, I love...
Like a year or 2 ago.
Yeah, I love the Casey Musgraves one. So that's what that reminds me of. Happiest Season. It's on Hulu. It stars Kristen Stewart and Dan Levy. I love it. I think it is such a great holiday movie. It very much can feel like the trappings of your traditional like rom-com at the holidays, but just on a really elevated level. And that sounds snobby. I don't mean it to. Like, I get in the muck with all the hallmarks, like Christmas Train, Christmas Cookie, whatever. Like, I do all of them, but Happiest Season's just awesome. And then this is my top. Please watch The Night Before. Please, everyone, make this a holiday classic. It is so dang funny, and it's heartwarming, too, but it is so funny, and I want everyone to watch it.
I believe you've talked about that movie about 50% of our podcast.
Yes, I have. I feel very strongly about this. Just like you somehow figure out some way to bring Bill Hader and Ben Schwartz into every episode. Night Before. That's my Bill Schwartz and my Bill Schwartz, my Ben Schwartz and my Bill Hader.
Squattered up Bosh.
But moving away from Tossi's Take, so obviously this is no longer a Tossi's Tease because I think we now have the full information of this, but coming up on January 29th, at 4 p.m., we will be hosting a film at Theater 514, which is part of the Civic Theater of Allentown on 19th Street. Ryan, do you want to tell them what movie we are hosting?
Folks, we're taking it all the way back to the start of the How Could You podcast. We're bringing you Richard Donner's classic, The Goonies. And we can't be more excited about bringing this and talking about this movie. live and in person.
Yeah, and it's so exciting. So, what we're calling this series is Nostalgia Cinema, hosted by the How Could You podcast. The idea being that we want people to gather and watch the movies that they feel really passionately about, that harken back to, and as I think you said, maybe even discovering some new friends along the way.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, what we're trying to get out of with this series is, to bring these movies that just, speak to everybody, that allows everybody to kind of have these emotions that they had the first time they saw it, or they want to share it with somebody new, or how could you not have seen this movie, and like you bring your friends that haven't seen it, and then what we're going to be doing afterwards is just having a little discussion, If you want to come out and just see the movie, that's great. If you want to stick around a little bit afterwards and enjoy a little discussion with us, as we all just kind of are in a shared space, just talking a little bit about these movies and what they mean to us and how much we've enjoyed them over the years.
Agreed. I am so excited. I cannot wait for this. We're going to be promoting this on our social media channels, so you can stay tuned. You can actually already buy tickets for it on the Civic Theater's website. We're so excited about this opportunity and feel very, very lucky that they are entrusting us with the series. So we hope to see you all there.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very grateful, and it's going to be something that we're going to be doing, we believe, once a month. So,
yes.
If you can't make it out on the 29th, please keep looking for any future episodes that we're going to, shows we're going to be doing as well.
Yay. And this is a great transition for our episode because the Civic Theater of Allentown is a really big part of our holiday traditions because each year they do a wonderful production of A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, they do an excellent job. We always look forward to it. We went to opening night this year, which was great being back in person. They do just an amazing job of it, like so many community theaters get to do with A Christmas Carol. And that's why this story is so beloved, because it can come at you from a lot of different ways: film, television, stage, everywhere.
And I think that's the thing is like, and now granted, are we exaggerating slightly that you make us watch 75 versions of A Christmas Carol every year? Okay, no, we're not exaggerating. You really do make us watch it. But, I always feel, when we see the live production of it, there's, obviously there's a reason why this story is so popular. Like, watching someone be redeemed and, like, the themes of the holiday season. Civic Theater always ends it with, like, a really beautiful musical performance, which I won't say if you've never been, because it's a wonderful surprise when it happens. It does
give you all of, as you would say, the Christmas feels.
It does give you all the Christmas feels.
Yeah.
But, so we are going to be primarily directing our episode to talk about the film adaptations of A Christmas Carol.
Our film podcast is going to talk about the film adaptations. I'm excited about that.
Great. So someone's already acting like a real Scrooge this episode. But so we thought, how we wanted to start this was to talk about like your top 3 favorite adaptations of A Christmas Carol. So, Ryan Tocci, what are your top 3?
You know what I love about this episode?
What?
It's speaking to me. We're just list upon list, folks.
We've just got lists and categories, and even when we were making the structure for this, I was like, this is where he lives. Yes. He loves rankings.
All right, so you want to know my top 3 adaptations?
Yes.
All right, so we're only doing the film adaptations, right? Because like we talked about, there are some fun TV versions.
Now, here's the thing. I don't think we have to stay exclusive to film. Mm-hmm. If there was a TV adaptation with, like, that's on the longer end of things, I think that would be fair.
You want long form? I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So I cannot put in the Michael J. Fox as Alex P. Keaton Family Ties episode of when he does A Christmas
You
Carol.
can 100%, because I love that episode. And every year when the mom runs into the clothesline, you like lose your mind. Like it's the funniest thing you've ever seen in your life.
It's hilarious.
It's a great
Elise Keaton just running back and forth and just keeps running into that line. If you guys have not seen it, go on, Amazon or wherever so you can buy the episode. It's hilarious. It's, it's 80s cheesy TV episode version of it.
Yes.
They use Mallory and everybody to do the ghost and everything, but I love it. But anything you put Michael J. Fox on, I'm, just watching.
Well, you're the same way with, like, Scrooge, so it's, like, a really wonderful convergence of things.
My top 3, so this is tough, because it can change, and there's actually one of the versions this year that I had never seen before, that, weirdly enough, with all the versions we've watched, that could have made this list, and may in future if we talk about it, but I only seen it once, so I decided not to put it on. But my number 3 would be Bill Murray's Scrooged.
Okay.
Because I think it's just and we're going to talk about the different retelling of this story and how people reimagine it with different versions, especially more recently. And when I say more recent, I'm saying in the last 20, 30 years, that we don't get quite that classic version of it. But I think this does it maybe the best. And so I'm really big on Scrooged. Muppet Christmas Carol is number 2 because, I mean, it's just a perfect film.
It truly is.
But number 1 to me is Alistair Sim's A Christmas Carol from 1951. I'm sure I've said it on that is the quintessential Christmas Carol version to me, and I have big reasons why it probably speaks to me most above all other versions, but
well, I want to know why. So does the listening audience, don't you guys?
I appreciate that. Well, this is twofold. 1, it's going to be sentimental, and then 2 is going to be just from a actual reasoning. Sentimental is pretty simple. It's the version, and I watched all as a kid. My brother would put it on this little black and white TV every year on, before we went to bed and on Christmas Eve. So I remember it from that end, and always was kind of the version that was on in that 11, 12 o'clock, midnight, Christmas Eve time.
You can't be up that late. Do you want Santa past your house?
Santa hit us early morning hours on Christmas. So that's, for me, it was growing up. This was the version. I don't know how much I ever actually, as a kid, actually saw the entire film, but I can tell you I remember at least the first 20 minutes of it.
Well, let's be honest. This is probably the quintessential Christmas story, and at that, I mean, it's not a kid's story.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. That's what I love about this version the best. To me, this is a horror movie.
Oh, yeah.
I think that this plays more as maybe not a horror movie as per se as a scary movie. And I think that's probably why it speaks to me. I think it's more in that aligned with that. But just as why the story of A Christmas Carol I love so much to begin with, because it just has so many elements of things that speak to me and the things that I'm going to gravitate towards. And I think that's what this version hits so much. And I'm sure I'll talk about it more as we get into some of our categories, but that's why this would be my top number 1.
Well, that makes sense too, because I mean, that's a popular, you and I have talked about this a lot, that's a popular Celtic tradition, the telling of scary stories on Christmas Eve, because they, believe, the belief being that the thin between, the world's is thinnest, on Christmas Eve. And so it makes sense why I like this, because when we were rewatching it this year, because normally we don't watch it until Christmas Eve.
Yes.
So it was very weird actually sitting down to watch it, not falling asleep about 15 minutes into it. But I was like, this is scary. This is legit kind of the want and ignorance children are awful and so terrifying. They also do a lot more, because isn't there that scene with Marley where he shows the other ghosts who have the chains? Mm-hmm. That part's creepy.
Oh, yeah. Also you're going to be talking about the sound design gives it an eeriness to it, and some of that I think is just of the time as opposed to necessarily, what they were trying to do with the film. But, the black and white, we watched the black and white version, not the colorized version, I think, which also adds an eeriness to it, but it has an overtone the whole time with it. Even with the ghost in the past, the present, and the future, it to me has just an eeriness overlaid to it throughout.
No, I totally agree. So my top 3, a little different, not much. Yeah. There's overlap.
I gotcha.
There's some reordering.
Well, I know 1 for sure.
Yeah, I was like, you have to know my top. So my number 3, and this one I don't think you'll realize, it was our first time watching it this year. My number 3 Christmas Carol of all time is the George C. Scott.
Excellent.
As we get into the categories, I'm sure I'll even be able to illuminate further why. I found myself so delighted by something that I knew was when you look at definitive lists of the best Scrooges of all time or the best Christmas carols of all time, that one comes up a lot. We had never watched it because I think large part because the Alistair Sim was such an important one to you. Mm-hmm. My number 1 is the Christmas Carol to me. That's the definitive Christmas Carol. So I didn't see the need to fit another one in because because that's the other thing is any episode that has a Christmas Carol element, you'll watch. For example, the Real Ghostbusters episode. You'll find anything that has to do with that. So I think I was I don't really need to see, it's the same story. I don't need to see it this way. And then we sat down to watch it. You would watch the first half without me.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And then you're like, no, we're going to start from the beginning. This one's good. And I was like hooked. I was like, this is so good. Right. I just loved it. And it's like real dingy, like real smoggy. And I don't know if there was something on the camera or they were just like, no, this is what London looked like in Dickens' time. But I loved it. So it's my number 3. My number 2 is Scrooged. For a lot of the same reasons. I love, it's so funny. It has, I think, one of the more disturbing ghosts of Christmas yet to come. When he's in that box, I'm like, that's not right. It wasn't one that we watched year to year. I remember the first time you put it on, and as much as I love Bill Murray, I was like, how good is this actually going to be? Like, it's going to feel
you didn't see this until we were together?
Yes.
How could you? I don't know if I knew that, I didn't remember. Oh my gosh.
I don't think I gave way, because you went to go put it on, and every now and then, like, someone's, like, trying to show you, and you're like, I don't think I want to watch this. I was like, all right, fine, put it on. And then, like,
we had a friend recently that told us that they had never seen Ghostbusters. I nearly kicked them out of our house. My question wasn't even like, oh, why did you not see? It was just like, how over the years had you not? It's Bill Murray, and that's like Scrooge. How did you not come across this at some point?
I am 1,000% positive right now somewhere my brother's like, you've seen that movie. I don't remember it. I honestly and truly, Christmas Carol, the version that's my number 1, again, like, I saw no other reason to watch other versions of it, so I didn't seek it out. I don't remember Scrooge, but I remember, like, we watched it, and we watched it that year, and it was my first time seeing it. I was like, oh, I really like it. That was really great. And then we watched it. We didn't watch it the next year, and then we watched it the year after, and I found myself sobbing at the end, and I was like, we must watch this every year.
Yeah.
This is such a great version of this story. And I think because it is so different, and for some other reasons I'm sure I'll get to in my categories. But my number 1, and there I will hear no dissent on this, this is to me the definitive Christmas Carol, is A Muppet's Christmas Carol. You had to know.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't have any problem with it. I mean, it is. It's so good. I knew it would be probably your number 1. I'm a little upset that Alistair Sims, which I've been making you watch for the last 18 years, did not make your list. However, I can't argue with your top 3. I really can't. They're so good. And The Muppets is just... yeah.
Michael Caine just makes me so happy. And, like, I saw a meme recently that it was, all right, Michael, this is going to be a Muppets version of A Christmas Carol. We want to have some fun with this. And then it's just a picture of him as Scrooge gonna play this as serious as a car accident. And I thought, that is the realest thing ever, because he does not give away that there are Muppets around him, not once during the movie.
And I don't necessarily recommend Cinema Sins on YouTube, but if you do watch it, there's an episode about the Muppet Christmas Carol. And essentially the show is just made to just butcher movies. Yes. That's why I don't necessarily recommend it, but it can have its humor at times. And the guy obviously loves A Muppet Christmas Carol, and he kind of addresses that at the beginning of the episode. But there's a moment where he talks about exactly what you're saying, which is like, Michael Caine has no business acting this good in this movie. It's like he didn't even know that he was acting against Muppets. It's just...
That's what makes it a classic. And the music in it is so good.
Paul Williams' songs are just amazing.
Did you literally just bring him up so you can talk about The Night They Saved Christmas?
No, Paul Williams is a legend.
I know he is, but can I tell you, it didn't feel like that's why you were saying that. No one's dropping his name just 'cause.
Those who know, they know.
Nice cup of hot chocolate. Yeah. So with that, we have our top 3s, which I'm sure are going to at least be a sneak preview of how we'll tackle some of these categories. So here's what we're going to talk. I'm going to give you your categories and events, and we're going to go one by one. Best Ghost, Best Overall Film, Most Villainous Scrooge, Favorite Scroogeism, Scrooge, you don't think learned a thing from the ghost. Most redeemed Scrooge, and best overall Scrooge.
All right, I like it. And I think what we're going to do here, though, folks, too, is, and I don't know why I'm using folks a lot in this episode, but, this is going to be the folks episode.
You actually do that a lot in our episodes.
All right, perfect. Good to know. We're yes. So I think what we're going to try to do is also, I'm going to do my best to not just sit here and talk about one version of this with every category.
I did the same.
Okay. So if I'm jumping around, like, I could probably sit there and talk about the Muppets Christmas Carol or the 1951 version and use it for all these categories. So I tried to open it up a little bit so we can talk about the lot of the different versions of this.
Yeah, and I won't lie, because I had to stop myself, because, like, obviously, giving away, like, obviously I love Muppets Christmas Carol, but I kept, like, going, like, I can't keep putting the same person. So let's start with Best Ghost. So, Best Ghost... and the version it's coming from. Ryan, who are you picking?
So can I ask a question with that?
No.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Now, you're saying Best Ghost. Do you just mean from a story standpoint? Or are you talking about...
Why don't you answer it from a story standpoint and then best version of one of the ghosts? How about that?
Okay, got it. So... my favorite ghost, and this is my favorite story of all time, A Christmas Carol. So to me, one of my all-time favorite characters in anything is Jacob Marley. Marley's ghost to me is just my top ghost, my top character. Don't ask me why. I just have always loved that character in anything I've ever seen. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, I like that. It's a solid answer. I was like, is he gonna be weird and be like, I like Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come because he's like a skeleton dude in every movie?
No, that's actually my least favorite character.
Because that whole section sucks.
Wow.
I hate how they play it like, well, I don't know that they're talking about me who died.
But that's the thing. The film versions do that. But if you read in the book, he does know. Like,
did you just book me?
I did. Well, it's the first and only time I'm ever going to be able to do that to an English teacher.
The original source material.
But they do address that he knows the whole time. Like,
so that
he's
is
just trying to be denied. Yeah,
please don't get mad at me. I've never actually read it.
All right. Well, now you have homework for next holiday season.
So, actually, I shouldn't say. I've read Stave 1. I think that's as far as I've gotten. I've read, like, the first part of it. So he does actually know that it's, like, his great...
Yeah, he knows it. He's just trying to...
The film versions play that so weird.
Yeah. But it depends on which versions, but yes.
So who's your favorite ghost, then?
So, being Marley, I want to address Marley, and I'm going to go with Goofy.
Aww.
As Marley. I love it. I mean, listen, Mickey's Christmas Carol is so... normally that would have been on my list.
I was shocked it wasn't.
I know. Can I tell you why? Because I realize it's such a starter version of A Christmas Carol, right?
Wow.
I mean, I watched it as a kid, so it's got such a near and dear place in my heart.
It just sounds so snobby, like, oh, that's your starter home.
A starter Christmas Carol for the youngins.
Get the kids hooked on the death and despair.
Not to become a miser, always to love Christmas. And if you don't do any of that, 3 scary ghosts are coming in one night to get you.
Lessons all children should learn.
Yeah. But no, that's he makes me laugh every time. And even though I love, like, the other versions of it, like, it's just... to me, I love seeing Goofy in that version.
Yeah.
And it's funny because of how they do the character, and it's just his coloring and how he comes in and he plays it kind of loud. I love when Scrooge McDuck is like talking to him and kind of like talking about praising him like he was in life, and he takes that moment and he's like all proud and he's like, wait, no, I'm not supposed to be like that. Or he's got the piggy bank and Scrooge is shaking.
Yeah, that's right.
So to me, Michael Horton as Jacob Marley in the 51 version though is terrifying.
He's so creepy.
And like, I understand why Scrooge is completely like terrified and just enamored by everything that he's saying.
Well, because it's like you kind of he gets like transfixed by him,
Yes.
but at the same point he's like absolutely terrified and like has no other choice.
Okay, so then up to you. What is your best ghost?
So I really favor in most versions the ghosts of Christmas Present. I like the jolliness, and then I like the turn when he goes from like he's really affable and then becomes like really harsh with him at the end, like especially if it's in versions where the ghost of Christmas Present is supposed to be like dying and fading, and then he gets like angry and starts like quoting lines that he's been saying, like then he better do so and decrease the surplus population and like all of that stuff. But I'll say my favorite ghost in all of the adaptation is Carol Kane as the ghost of Christmas Present, because just a vibe. Like, she beats the living hell out of Scrooge. I don't think she is not invested in actually helping him. She's just mad the whole time, which I think is a more appropriate way to approach that character. And, like, she just keeps, like, and you can tell he's just getting so aggravated, but then she'll, like, just turn on this sweetness. Her outfit is phenomenal. Carol Kane all the way. I mean, Carol Kane in anything, but, like, especially in that.
You hit me with a toaster.
Because, like, what I love about it is it's the approach of, like, probably how anyone wants to talk to, like, a Scrooge character, of just wanting to yell at him, but, like, in all the other versions, the Ghost of Christmas Present, it doesn't happen till right at the very end, but she's doing it so from the beginning. And the physical comedy of it's great, and, like, it feels deserved, and I like the juxtaposition of this person having to, like, verbally, like, beat this guy up, but also is, like, dressed like Glinda the Good Witch. Like,
right.
She's so great.
Do you have a favorite? I have to ask, though, then about all of them, right?
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite of the ghost with Jacob Marley?
Oh, like, who plays the best Marley?
Like a favorite version of it.
I mean, I'm going to go with your Alistair Sim, actually. He's terrifying. He's truly terrifying. I think the other version, like, the Statler and Waldorf, obviously, in the Muppets. You
mean the Michael Horden playing?
Yes, Michael Horden, yeah.
Okay.
I think the thing that, like, because obviously the book starts out this way. I think understanding Marley as someone terrifying helps you to understand why he becomes so hyper aware of everything that's about to happen. Like, obviously, no matter what, ghosts are visiting him, it's going to freak him out. But I think there's something about the fact that, like, it's so set around this person died, and that this is something I think you and I were reflecting about in preparation of the show. Like, it's one of the very weird plot points that, like, Marley has to suffering death, but, like, seemingly cares enough about his friend to be like, no, I'm going to visit you because you're about to be suffering the same fate as I am. And you get the sense of, like, with Marley, like, there is something altruistic, like something of, like, a lesson learned, and, like, thinking, and he must see something enough in Scrooge, which I actually think the Alistair Sim version does the best job of showing their relationship. Yeah, because no other version really does.
Agreed. I was gonna say the exact same thing. There's that extra, I don't want to say extra scene, it's just everybody's got a different version, but there's those scenes with them meeting for the first time, and they bond right away, and then obviously they're bonding as they're kind of, climbing the ladder of the business world. So I agree with you. Those extra scenes really play to that relationship between the two of them that you don't get a lot in a lot of the other versions.
Well, because I think, like, in some of the versions you're to get, like, he's kind of the only other person that Scrooge loved. I'm putting some real, like, quotation marks around that, but, like, there's a fondness that he has that I think helps to make sense of why he gets, like, when he comes to visit him and he's in the state that he's in. I also love, like, some versions where, like, he won't look at him in the eyes. Like, he can't, like, he's like, I can see you even though I'm not looking at you. You know, I don't know. There's just something, like...
Well, we also get in that version, and again, I know I'm talking a ton about the 51 version here, and I apologize, but I think there's just so much, these are things that, like, you're talking about that with the Marley. There's also the really great scene of when Marley's dying that you don't get in other versions of Marley on his deathbed literally trying to save Scrooge.
Yeah.
Like, his last words are telling Scrooge to save himself. Like, essentially, we were wrong, and you need to save yourself. Like, and that's what Marley, as a friend, is trying to do in life, and then eventually does in, obviously, the afterlife.
Well, because in that version, what you're not getting is, or in that version, what you're getting that you're not getting in any of the other versions was the fact that, like, Scrooge was even so bitter that, like, he didn't go and see Marley right until, like, because he like, finished out the workday. And then also what you get with that, too, is, like, there's this notion of, like, Marley was already reckoning with, like, what their life was, and then it makes you wonder, well, was Scrooge ever going to? Like, would death have actually had that effect upon him if without getting visited by three ghosts? But yeah, going back to it, Carol Kane beating Bill Murray out is my favorite ghost. So that takes us to best overall movie. I think we're already showing our hands on this entirely.
Well, here's the thing I will say. Best overall, I would actually argue this year that the 84 George C. Scott version might be the best version.
So now obviously we know you love the 51, but what about the George C. Scott version would make you say that?
I think that I feel like it's a more complete film. I feel that it flows better than any of the other films, and that just might be the time period that it was made, where there's a little bit of a jumpiness to the 51 version that obviously I'm going to compare it to. I think George C. Scott plays Scrooge just amazingly. Like, I would not have thought that, and maybe I differ. George C. Scott's such a legendary actor. I should have given, his performance in Doctor Strangelove is one of my all-time favorite performances of anything.
Oh my Garland. I didn't realize it was the same person. Jeez.
Yeah, so
I have a film podcast.
We have a show. Civic, please keep us. I like, there are scenes that are added into this that I think add into something that really add to the story that we don't get in other versions. I think it really opens up, especially the love with him and Belle, because we get an extra scene that we don't get in other versions of Belle with her family and the life that she lives after. And it really, because I think a lot of versions is Scrooge almost starts to turn immediately, right? Like, he starts to have these. Now he resigns himself in some versions that I can't change enough to fix. So I don't really want to go through the rest of this, but he's already trying. What I like about this version, it's not like he gets angry during the Ghost of Christmas Past. Like, he's hurt, he's angry, he doesn't want to deal with everything that's going on. I think it just adds a good layer. Like, I think he needs to go to that complete journey. I don't like that in some of the versions he is already so much kinder almost immediately. And there were just little things like that. I think the relationship with him and the nephew plays much better in the 84 version with George C. Scott. So I do think it's a more maybe complete film, and I'm excited for next year to watch this version of it more times. I wish I had not seen it. This has been this version of this film that for some reason, like you said, I have not watched over the years because I am so attached to the 51 version, and the 51 version plays this very, Dickens style, like, right? Like, it is Dickensian. We're going with old world England. It's the way that it's how it was written. So how many different versions of that you want to see? There's all these reimagined versions now, and I have some feelings about that, but I think that's why you never need it to attach to another version. My dad had this on DVD. We got this DVD, and it sat on our shelf every Christmas, and I just never watched it. And I now understand why my dad owned it. I mean, my dad, big Haddon fan, so obviously,
Wait, so you had this in your house and just never watched it?
You and I have owned it. It has come out with all of our Christmas movies. We just have never watched it.
Aw. Yeah. I kind of feel bad now, knowing that we've had it.
I'm glad this gap in our film knowledge has been filled.
It has been filled. It's still not my favorite, though. The best movie.
Understandable.
But, I don't disagree with anything that you said.
No, but we're talking best overall movie, not your favorite, right?
Yes,
we're talking overall. This category. Okay.
Yeah. I'm still going to say Muppet's Christmas Carol.
Okay.
I do think it's the best overall. I don't know if that's fair, because it's a very different version of it, because there's Muppets involved, and there's a Gonzo. You don't think I should say this is best overall?
This is your answer.
Wow.
This Muppets Christmas Carol has no business being as great as it is.
It has all the business being it, because the Muppets rule.
Fair enough.
So here's why, because I think you talked about Mickey's as a starter Christmas Carol, and I love something like the Alistair Sim, the George C. Scott, and I think part of it is because when I think about understanding this story and growing up with this story, I think about the Muppets version. What I like about it is because there's something about the music in it that allows for those emotional swells a little bit more. Now, I think the Christmas Carol story should always make you feel emotional. It's emotional watching someone reckon with their past life's mistakes, having to see what their potential future looks like, and how they'll be remembered, and having to look at like what their legacy might be. Like, the story should always hit emotional notes. Watching someone be redeemed in that way is kind of beautiful. But at the same time, there's something to me about Muppet's Christmas Carol that I just feel like hits it better. Like, that I watched that movie from beginning to end, and to me it's perfect. Like, and it's everything I want it to be. I think the humor is well placed. I don't think it panders to its audience. I don't think it removes a lot of beats. Like, yes, it takes out, the storyline with Fan and losing, that she dies in childbirth, which I kind of understand. You're thinking about, like, age appropriate for, like, your target audience for it. But I don't know, there's something still about Muppet's Christmas Carol, and I think it's somewhat, there is somewhat that commitment to it, it's supposed to feel like it's England in the 17th century. Like, there's something about the 18th century, there's something about the commitment to that I like. Yeah, granted, like, it looks like a Muppet set. Like, everything's shortened because there's puppeteers. Like, yeah. I get it. But there's something about that world that feels fully realized. It feels genuine. There's something about how Scrooge is that, as we've been talking about, like, it's almost like he was playing for his Oscar. Like, he's like, give me an Oscar for this Muppets movie. I dare you, because I'm going to be that good that you're going to kind of have to think about it. Right. So yeah, I'm still going Muppets Christmas Carol for my best overall movie.
Do you like the use of in and out of different live action actors with Muppets?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I think that's such a strong tradition in the Muppets world. I think if you tried to do something just straight Muppets, I think it would almost feel off. Because there's something immediately interesting about the comedy that comes from the fact that there are humans and Muppets in the same world, and that, like, nobody's acknowledging that fact. That kind of works, I think, really well. But then I think also, additionally, like, this film doesn't need to acknowledge it, because it's like you just have to accept it. Like, you have to accept the fact that the lettuce is like, I'm being stolen, and then you have to think, like, are all my vegetables sentient? Do they all think I'm going to eat them? Like, what is their life? Like, there's a lot of things you have to recken with in this movie. I love Muppets Christmas Carol.
Yeah, the fact that Charles Dickens is living in his own universe.
He's retelling the story. Yeah, I mean, like, but it's still perfect. I'll still take it.
I can't argue with any of this.
Yay!
The music just gives you every emotion, and yeah, it's a beautiful telling of it.
So to take us from this beautiful moment and this beautiful telling, which Scrooge do you find to be the most villainous of all of the Scrooges?
I'm gonna pass it to you to go first on this.
Oh, okay. Mine is Alistair Sim. I don't trust that dude for a mile. He is creepy, and he seems very delighted in others' like struggles. Like, he creeps me out. Like, you said this earlier about a horror movie, and I'm like, yeah, because Alistair Sim seems like he could, like, stand next to Michael Myers. Like, he's terrifying. Like, I think there's something about him that seems like, comparing it with, like, the George C. Scott version or other versions of Scrooge, like, you're right. Often that turn happens kind of early, like, where you almost get the sense of, like, once he's seen Fan, he's already starting to, the wheels are turning. Like, he's at least open to the idea of being changed. There's something about Alistair Sim where, like, I think it takes a really long time in that film for him to look like he regrets what he did. And I like that about to me, a credit to the film and a credit to Alistair Sim's performance, because, like, you talk about how it's like you have to understand that Marley is dead or else nothing wondrous can come of this story. You also have to understand that he is miserable and mean and kind of delights in the pain that he's causing other people at the sake of his fortune. Like, you kind of have to believe in that too, or else his turn doesn't really feel that miraculous. Like, if he was actually at heart, like, kind of an okay person and was open to this just in life, it doesn't, I don't know, he has to seem dastardly. And if he doesn't, then I don't think you have that payoff. I gotta believe he's as he's described.
No arguments here. I agree with you. I think Alistair Sim does an amazing job of just emoting facially throughout the movie that gives you something really eccentric to that character.
Yes, yeah. He's got crazy eyes.
Well, he does.
That is part of it.
Yes.
I mean that, no, I mean that positively.
Yeah.
I don't mean that as a knock.
Yeah.
I mean it positively.
Yeah, but I think his eyes is really this amazing transformation for him, because he's got these big eyes, but he knows how as an actor. And I don't know, I apologize, I don't know a lot about his history. I'm curious if he was at any point a silent actor. So I'm trying to think 51, probably not.
Yeah.
Definitely a stage actor, I would have to think at some point.
Because he feels like he is playing to the back.
Yeah, and his eyes from the evil to that change to the joy and almost crazy, where he actually questions his own sanity at some point, I think really is quite telling.
So what about you? Most villainous?
Oh, I'm gonna go Samuel Powers at the mall.
Oh my god!
Sponsored by Mr. Moody. So as I'm referring to, obviously, is Screech Powers on Saved by the Bell's classic A Christmas Carol episode. Well, technically, it's a totally different episode about the mall at Christmas time, and then they put on a retelling of A Christmas Carol. So, yeah, that's obviously that's the number one.
Lauren went bye-bye for a little while because I could not believe that's what you said. You know what? Stick with it. Live your truth. Well, you know why? Because who wants to see Screech villainous? Right. Remember that episode where he really thinks he's going to be with Lisa, and then he gets mad at Zach because Zach's with Lisa?
Yeah.
And you're like, he's got tinges of a psycho if he goes the wrong way.
That's not wrong. There's got to be some type of understanding there. Zach, you've had every other lady in this school. You can't just...
let's save it for a Saved by the Bell episode.
All right. Do you guys want to hear a Saved by the Bell episode? Let us know in the comments.
There are 2 Saved by the Bell movies. I'm just throwing that out there.
That's true. But no, if you're talking villainous, I'm going again back to Scrooge. Frank Cross, to me, is... here is a character that literally finds joy in a woman dying from watching the trailer of his movie. And he just sees all of the... He gives his assistant her raise as a bath towel right in front of her. She makes her put down her own bath towel.
Yeah.
He is just...
He's bad.
He steps over everybody. So, yeah, that would probably be...
You paid for the women.
He wanted them to staple antlers on top of mice.
So, also, too, he does not seem... He seems weirded out that the ghosts are happening, but his change of heart takes a while, too. He's so mean. Towel. DVD player. Or was it VCR player? VCR player. Okay, so thinking about...
we gotta remember what year it was.
That's true. So favorite Scroogeism. So Scrooge has a lot of catchphrases. We've got, obviously there's the iconic bah humbug. But I want to know, do you have a favorite Scrooge quote that you kind of see in a lot of the versions that you kind of point to as your faves?
So, I have a couple that I want to talk about. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's totally fine.
All right.
We make our own rules.
Yes, all right, perfect. Because one of my all-time favorite is... There's more gravy than grave of you. I love it.
What a terrible pun!
That's the only problem with that. It's a great quote. It's a great line.
Yeah.
Because who hasn't had just eaten something terrible and your whole world seems totally off. I just love that line.
This time of year for us, yes.
But the Muppets slightly ruined it in making a hilarious joke about it and calling it a pun. So that one is definitely up there. But I also have to say, as far as Scroogeisms go, I think if they rather die, then they better do it. And decrease the surplus population has to be up there, because that is just savage.
You're not wrong, homie.
If that line alone tells you who Scrooge is at this point in his life,
I know, and it sounds terrible because we're laughing as you say it, but at the same, because it is so villainous.
Imagine saying that. Somebody saying that to somebody that's collected money for the homeless or the poor. It is just brutal and just speaks to how awful of a miser and human being he is at this junction. It is crazy.
And you gotta think, too, that's something that gets said to you and you're like, oh, wow, all of my illusions that humanity is good have now been cracked. Right. Thank you so much for that.
Or, that's pretty much half the things that are said in comment sections, I believe, on social media. But
it's hard to top that. That is probably the most ruthless thing he says, and it's appropriate. Then it gets thrown back into his face by the ghost of Christmas Present, because it is such a marker of probably his worst moment of of who he is, thinking that if you can't change your situation, you just deserve to die at that point. It's really kind of horrible. And actually, I think is it the Alistair Sim or the George C. Scott that show like the families living under the tunnels.
Oh, that's the George C. Scott version, which is another great scene that really amps that film up.
Well, and I like that they included that because, and they make Scrooge go see it because it's like, you hear them to talk about the impoverished, like, in every version of A Christmas Carol, but you don't really see it outside of the Cratchit household.
Yes. Yeah. And I do think that speaks back to why the line with The Ghost of Christmas Present is so kind of jarring back to him, because it's like, I'm making this joke about comment sections and social media. It's really true, right? Like, Ebeneezer has no problem saying this to two guys that are well-dressed and just they're collecting funds and just says that. When he puts it in front of somebody that he sees the emotional weight of Tiny Tim and all of that, or like you talked into George C. Scott, seeing these people that are out there, like all of a sudden that hits a lot more real to him, and he realizes the weight of those words that he's saying, that they're not just something that are just flippant. Like, words hurt. Words mean something, and I think that's a big moment to that.
Well, and you also get to see that, so there's, and I don't know if we'll talk about this version much, there's a version called The Man Who Invented Christmas, which is more about Dickens writing A Christmas Carol and, like, that process, but they show in that the prisons and the workhouses, and first off, I don't know if there is a worse place to live than in London. Like, that Sweeney Todd song hits differently when you're really watching a lot of versions of A Christmas Carol, and No Place Like London, like... But, like, because you get the sense of, like, he's probably never had to actually be in the places that he's saying that people should be sent to. Like, he's never had to walk that life, so he has no sense of, like, what it is. Whereas, like, in The Man Who Invented Christmas, like, Charles Dickens is writing this from the perspective of, like, he's had to work in a workhouse. Like, he knows what it looks like and how, like, devastating that can be and how bleak that can be. My favorite Scroogeism is, I'm a big fan of, it's a poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. That's one of my faves.
That's a great line.
It's mean. It's not as mean as yours. But it's what I just like. Honestly, I like the cadence that it's normally set at, the speed. It's great alliteration. So it's just solid writing. And I'm glad it gets included in so many of the versions, because I do think it's, again, another, like, there are certain of those Scroogeisms that are just kind of great markers. Like, nobody really knows what bah humbug means. Yeah. You just know it's his catchphrase. Yeah. But, like, all of these other lines, I think, help to develop the character more of, like, how deeply he feels this, like, ideology that he's, like, really, like, clouded a lot of his, like, perceptions of humanity with by only viewing them through their monetary value. And speaking of monetary value, who is the Scrooge that you think, I don't know if they really learned the lesson. Like, they seem okay on Christmas Day this year, but I think by next Christmas, the greed's going to be creeping in.
I'm going to go with a new version of this. I'm going to go as Guy Pearce in the BBC version of A Christmas Carol.
I hate that version so much!
As everybody probably should. It is a dark telling of it. Guy Pearce doesn't really learn anything in this version. It's just really... He's better. Like, it just, he's such a horrible version of Scrooge. Like, you don't see a lot of redeemable, and then you get to the end, and the way that it's kind of played just doesn't, it just speaks to really the entire version of it. I get what BBC and FX were going for. They wanted to go with this really dark version of it.
They have to be so scared to miss it.
Yeah, that's all those trailers for it when it was coming up. So this was 2 years ago. If you haven't seen it, it's like a 3-hour version of it. I don't necessarily recommend it.
It's terrible.
If you want something that's just really grim and dark and not really give you the light that comes out of A Christmas Carol, then check it out if it's your thing.
Or we'll give you like 15 horror movies to watch that are better uses of your time.
Yeah, right. So that's going to be my answer.
Mine is different, although I honestly, I kind of want to change mine to yours, because yours actually is 100%. I don't buy for a second Guy Pearce learns anything. Mine is Scrooge McDuck.
Oh, wow.
He has a money pit. He collects antiquities for his own good and purpose. He goes on adventures to, like, get, like, statues. He's learned that, yeah.
Every day.
The golden idol is still very much looming large in his life. Scrooge McDuck learns nothing.
He's got his lucky dime.
No.
He doesn't even go see. Does he see? Oh no, he sees Fred in the. He sees Donald in the streets in that version.
Yeah.
That's
yeah, it's like a quick version.
Yeah.
So moving from hasn't learned anything Money Pit Scrooge to most redeemed Scrooge, which is the Scrooge that you like that turn. And so when we say this, like obviously the cornerstone of any great telling of A Christmas Carol is you really want to see Scrooge change, like for there to be a real dramatic shift in how he looks at the world, how he interacts with people. So I want to know, which of the Scrooges do you think seems the most redeemed?
I think I'm gonna steal your answer.
Oh, I know you are.
You gonna go Frank Cross?
No.
Oh, Scrooged? No?
Oh my gosh, but you're so right. I want to change my answer now. You're so right.
Here's my thing. I mean, it feels, I'm kind of taking your question and I'm looking at it in two different ways, but both ways I kind of end up back with Frank's version of Scrooge, quote unquote, because we talked already about how I thought he was one of the most villainous. So you get to that, Mickey Rooney version of him yelling out to the TV and singing and getting everybody, and it just brings you to tears. Like, he seems genuinely overtaken in pain, in hurt, and in happiness of going, like, he knows what he's done. And I like that. I also think what I like is the redeeming aspect that we get with this version as opposed to others is Scrooge redeems himself and he gets his love back. We don't get that in,
it's a great
I would say,
point.
probably the majority of the versions. If there's some TV films or something like that, maybe, because like I know there's like that Tori Spellin version out there and some versions like that. I don't know with those versions, how they retold it. But in this version, he does. He gets his love interest. He just brings a happiness to the world. Like, it just feels encompassing. His emotional turn feels like it's spread out. Kind of like Buddy singing and giving Santa his power. Like, he just spreads this Christmas cheer through all these people, through these TVs, and through the people that are around him. And then he gets, the love of his life back. He gets his bell, quote unquote.
I'm changing my answer.
All right.
Yeah. I agree heartily. Because he has that great speech too, where he talks about like you can have the miracle too, and once you have it, you'll get greedy for it. You'll want it. It's the best I've felt in a long time. Yeah, it's the best I've felt in a long time. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry on the episode. No, you're so right. Yeah, I can't. Forget whatever.
We're just gonna both overlook the fact that he had Bobcat go wait with a gun, shotgun up in the booth, kidnapping.
Bobcat's on his own
hostage situation. Sorry, we learned last episode that kidnapping and hostage situations are different.
Very different.
So he has them in a hostage situation. We're going to overlook that a little bit, right?
Yeah, because I don't think Frank knows exactly what he's doing. It's fine.
I want to know who would have been your pick.
It was going to be Michael Caine and Muppets.
Okay, all right.
That's a credit to the acting. I think that's actually more to the point where it's like, I don't know if it's written so dramatically more redeemed, or it's just Michael Caine is such a phenomenal actor that it's like when he goes from being harsh to being lighthearted again, the Michael Caine that we normally get to see, it just feels like, oh wow, this feels like very genuine. But the thing is, I can't argue with what you're saying about, the Frank Cross character is played by Bill Murray, because there's something about it too, like how often are you seeing roles, particularly at that point in time, of Bill Murray are really heartfelt, really emotional in that way. Like, I don't think you're seeing that a lot. Like, and so much of that movie is incredibly comedic. Also, so much of that movie is like really intensely dark. The stuff that happens like at the homeless shelter, with like, there's a lot in that movie that I think it's too, because like his story is so condensed, because you're supposed to get the sense his like turn to being evil only happened over a few years. Like, are you supposed to think like maybe like 5 or 10 years?
I would have went a little longer than that.
You think so?
Perhaps you're correct.
Perhaps. I might be mistaken.
When he had the dog show.
Well, yeah, that's actually really, because that would be a very quick ride. I think in my head I've always supposed to think he was like kind of like a wonderkin and like got in, rose quickly, and really forgot like a lot of, because otherwise, why is she waiting around? Like, so I always have thought about it as like this condensed period of time that this all happens to him. So when he gets visited and like that turn is like really dramatic because he went into this like villainous role so dramatically and then comes out of it pretty quickly once he's, again, accepted the miracle. So Bill Murray wins Most Redeemed, but now I want to know, who's your best overall Scrooge?
It's a good question, because we talk, when you're talking about this story, it's encompassing, for, a lifetime for people. There's so many different versions of it. And when this story kind of speaks to people, everybody kind of has their own one that there's their favorite, right? Like you start talking about my favorite Scrooge. That's my Scrooge, right? So, we're kind of talking about the ones that hit with us, but there's a lot of different versions of it, right? Like there's the Christmas Carol the movie, which is that animated version. I think it's a little more on the boring side. There's some good voice actors, like Kate Winslet's in it. I think Nick Cage actually does one of the voices in it. The other big animated one is more recent, which is Jim Carrey. It's so weird. It gets a little dark. Like, I mean, we've talked about why that speaks to us, but there's a weirdness towards the end of it. My biggest issue with that is I like Jim Carrey. I find him very funny. I've always have. I wish that they didn't choose to make him all the ghost as well. I have a big issue with that. So it doesn't, not really our favorite. I do think, though, some of the animation complaints that people have, you and I recently talked about this, people compare it a lot with Polar Express, and I don't have the issues that some people do, but to me, just from a story standpoint, it just doesn't jump out. We have the Kelsey Grammer musical version, which, again, doesn't really speak to you and me, but some people may really like it. I mean, I think Jason Alexander plays Marley in that version.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so, that's the big ones you have to talk about that I don't think we're going to give a lot of credit to here, but really a lot of people love is the Reginald Owen one, which was in the 30s.
That's 1938, right?
Yeah, huge with people. I think that's a very big version. I'll say this, that is a great version. No problem with it. It's just so comparable to the 51 version, so it's kind of like choosing sides there and end up like, for me, I choose the 51 version. Nothing wrong with the 38 version with him. He's great. Albert Finney musical version, kind of odd. He plays
Have you seen that?
I've seen parts of it.
Okay.
Albert Finney, who's a great, obviously legendary actor, very odd with it. It just doesn't, again, one of those versions that doesn't work. But the other one I think we have to give some credit here to, we haven't talked about, is the Patrick Stewart version.
Sir Pat Stew?
Because this is one that people really, really love. And I think Patrick Stewart is amazing in it. I think he's probably the highlight. I find that it's Patrick Stewart, though, so it almost comes a little distracting.
So you can't see him as Scrooge, you're only seeing him as Ken.
And that's weird because some of these other actors, Bill Murray we've talked about, and
Michael Caine.
Yes. So thank you for that. And so, like, the Patrick Stewart version is very good. A lot of people love it, and I think it deserves to be talked about. He's game, and he's great. Also, real quick note on that, one of the solicitors, played by Higgins from...
Oh, really? From Ted Lasso?
Ted Lasso,
that's funny.
But, so, all of that being said, I just wanted to give some love out to these other versions of it. Everybody that's listening, some of you probably were yelling, like, what the Patrick Stewart... If we didn't talk about it, we apologize. It's just kind of not the ones that we gravitated towards, but... Obviously, whatever version you love of A Christmas Carol, that should be your version. So all of that, I just wanted to give all that love out there to all of the different versions, and any of that I forgot, I apologize, folks. But your question at the beginning of this, best overall Scrooge, I'm gonna have to give it to Michael Caine.
What?
I know, Alistair Sim, I want to, but Michael Caine, he acted with Muppets, and like you said, he just gave me everything that Scrooge is.
I never saw that coming for a mile.
That's what happens in these, we get talking, I hear your version, I get my words out. Like, listen, I am going to have this special place for Alistair Sim as Scrooge all time in my life. He is Scrooge, but if you're asking me who played it the best, it's Michael Caine. He gives you everything you want, from you hate him to the miserly to seeing the transition, but then also you see the change. my favorite part of Michael Caine is when he is with the Ghost of Christmas Present, and Ghost of Christmas Present singing with the people in the town, and he gives him this look of just this, like, why am I listening to this? Why am I? Yeah. And as soon as the Ghost of Christmas Present moves to him and gives him the attention, he changes. It's a lightness. Here is a lonely man. He is lonely. It's the world he's created. So he thinks all these people are his enemy when they're not. And this moment to me signifies Scrooge to the best, to the best, in that he thinks that, but when all he wants is some love, even though he doesn't realize it's being given to him by others. It's that moment when the Ghost of Christmas Present comes over and all of a sudden he's dancing with him, and that smile just melts my heart every time. And to me, you just see every facet and phase and with Michael Caine, and the fact that he was able to do this in a Muppet movie and play it earnestly is really just brilliant.
So, like, I had a different answer, but, like, I hate to, like, just keep conceding, because that's not normally what we do in these...
Stick to your convictions.
I don't know that Tocci. I can.
Stick to your convictions.
Like Scrooge, I'm having a turn.
The ghost of Ryan, past, present, and future, has convinced you?
No, like, because I can't disagree with anything you're saying. You're great, and I think that's, like, and obviously, like, yeah, of course I love the Muppets, but it's like, but I love Michael Caine in that, and there is something so genuine in how he approaches all facets of who Scrooge is in this transition. Like, from exactly what you said, like someone who is bitter at the world, to lonely, to in pain, to, reminiscing, to wanting to help, to wanting to be charitable, but not knowing if he is really almost like deserving of kind of this turn that he's going to have, to when he finally does. And the real true understanding at the end of it, you really feel like this is a guy who's been changed for the better and is going to continue to do well, like all throughout. Yeah, I don't see it any other way.
Who are you gonna?
I was gonna say George C. Scott. Here's the thing with George C. Scott, and it could be recency bias of we watched it for the first time this year and I was really taken by it. What I really appreciate about the George C. Scott is he plays the opening portions of Scrooge without anger. He plays it so like this is his ideology. Like, this is not, he doesn't see himself as like, chaotic good or chaotic evil. He's just like, I want to maintain my wealth. I have very particular views about how other people don't keep their wealth. And there's no sense of, like, anger or bitterness or like, it's almost like he doesn't give way that that's there. Like, I think in other versions of Scrooge, you get the sense of, like, beneath all that anger, there's a lot of hurt, whereas George C. Scott plays it like, no, this is just how he feels about the world. Like, from years of experience, and his trauma has been so pushed down, and what is replaced over it is, instead of like any like reconciliation with the bad things that have happened, just like no, I have this firm set of beliefs and I'm going to stick to it. It's going to keep me safe and it's going to keep me comfortable. And I like that telling of it, because to me it's very different than these other versions of Scrooge. At that, like, and when he has his redemption point, I believe that he is a changed person, because I think, like, that scar tissue kind of, unfortunately, gets exposed, and he really does have to kind of deal with a lot, and I think the George C. Scott version gets to show him in moments that we don't always get to see in the Scrooge story, so it allows kind of for, like, this, like, almost, like, fuller transformation. But, like, at that, like, I don't know, you're talking about Michael Caine, and I can't feel differently than you on that, because it is my favorite version. It's like, you're right, like, there is something so definitive about that version of Scrooge.
This is why we watch 70 versions a year, because they're
so
good.
Also in the feels. But let's imagine for a second that creative control was given to us. Do you have a dream casting?
Do I have a blank check on this?
Yes, you have a blank check. Schedules be damned. Whoever you would want in it, who would you have in your version of A Christmas Carol?
Well, first, do you know that there is a new version of this coming out next year?
No.
It will be called Spirited. Okay. It's a reimagining of the classic, quote unquote. And it will be starring Ryan Reynolds as Ebeneezer Scrooge, Will Ferrell as the Ghost of Christmas Present, Octavia Spencer's in it. I'm not sure who she's playing.
Whoever she is, she'll be flawless.
So I think Patrick Page, we know from Broadway, he's going to be in it. I have a feeling he's going to be playing Ghost of Christmas Future.
Or Marley.
Oh, he could be a good Marley. Yeah. So
I hate the name.
I think it's going to be... it's a musical version, too, if I didn't say that already. So, I'm not... Listen, these guys, I mean, I like the cast as you know, people, as personalities. I like them a lot as actors, depending on the roles that they play. This bums me out. I'm not excited about it. I hope I'm wrong next year.
Go in open for to it.
All right. But this speaks to what I want to quickly say about my version of it that I've created is... We have had for the last 30 years reimagining versions of this. Give me back more of a classic. So my telling, I wanted a little bit more in the spirit of Dickens. Okay. Like, I want to go back to the old world here. So that's my first thing I just want to say up front. But here's...
Give me the dysentery of bad public plumbing.
Yeah. So let me start off with Scrooge's counting house. We got to go with the solicitors. The solicitors are going to be Bill Hader and Mr. Ben Schwartz.
Yeah, that's real old world, Toss. That's some casting that feels ripped from Dickens' time.
I want you to stop, think about it,
and
tell
it's perfect.
me they wouldn't be
It's
perfect.
It's
all
totally
right,
perfect.
Listen, I did not get to say that a lot this season, so I'm glad I got to bring them back for you here as we finish up season 3. But my Scrooge, I went back and forth so much about this. Because do you know how old Scrooge is supposed to be?
How old is he supposed to be?
He's only supposed to be in his 50s.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. Now we gotta remember the time and the age,
yeah,
you know.
Fair.
So, but yes, he's always usually played a lot older. But he's
and the poor air quality probably aged people a lot. Factories were not good for anyone.
Bob Cratchit's only supposed to be in his 30s.
All right, that tracks.
Yeah. So this is my version of it. I apologize if I didn't go with a lot of British actors.
That's all right.
I went back and forth. John Lithgow as my Ebeneezer Scrooge.
Oh, that works.
I think anybody that's seen him on Dexter knows he can get that evil. I mean, he's done a lot of evil roles over the years. Cliffhanger and things like... Yeah. Oh, yes. I mean, BZ Toys from Santa Claus the movie. So he can play that evil, but obviously he's got such comedic chops, so he's going to play that lightheartedness. I think he is a great actor to kind of give you that range. And then here was a guy that I had considered as my Scrooge for Jacob Marley, because I think these two would pair really well with this. John Malkovich as Jacob Marley.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yes.
He kind of seems ghostly. Yeah. Also, if you've never watched the SNL skit with him doing the 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, it's a delight.
So for my Bob Cratchit, I was actually going to go with Daniel Kaluuya.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, because in my version, I want to play it straight. Like, I want a serious version of this. Not overly serious like the FX version, but I want good, serious actors in this part.
And he's phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, he's phenomenal. Absolutely. Tiny Tim, just... a newcomer, a young newcomer actor to play that role. Ghost of Christmas Past, Amanda Seyfried, I thought would be really cool for that.
I can totally see that.
Yeah, right? I think she would just have a cool aura to her.
She's very ethereal.
Yes, I was thinking the exact same thing. Yeah. So I thought she would be amazing. Ghost of Christmas Present, I had a huge list here. And for different reasons, I wanted to go with Brendan Gleeson at one point.
Oh, yes.
He would be really awesome. Yes. I thought Jason Momoa would have the stature to him, but I'm not the biggest of his acting. I don't want to hear, him giving...
Aquaman puns, Yeah, that's fair.
Idris Elba could be cool.
Because Idris Elba, again, phenomenal and everything.
So, Chris Hemsworth I even thought of at one point.
I'm, down for this movie.
But here is who I landed on, which is going to be really strange from all the ones I just picked. And don't laugh, Tyler Perry.
Oh, no, I totally get that.
And anybody that's ever seen Gone Girl knows Tyler Perry has the acting chops, but he has got a presence to him. He's a big dude, but he's got, a seriousness that he can pull off, but also just, a lightheartedness to him that Ghost of Christmas Present needs. Well, he needs to have a presence.
And I think he has that perfect balance because, his comedic prowess in, the Medea films.
Yeah.
Obviously, because the Ghost of Christmas Present is supposed to be lighthearted at first. reverse
Yeah.
and that serious turn. Anything he's done, Gone Girl's a phenomenal example of this. Like, he does have, like, a presence to him, a stature of, like, it commands, like, an authority and attention. I love that.
Awesome. Very cool.
Great casting.
And I do have a Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, because in my version, it's going to be played a little differently.
Okay.
And here's an actor who I think would have been an amazing Ebeneezer Scrooge. He's too old for it now.
Okay.
I would love to see Ian McKellen come in and
How did he never play?
Oh my gosh, right?
Ebeneezer
he would have
Scrooge.
just been
incredible.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he would be cool. I actually, for a moment, I thought about Tony Todd because I could see his voice and playing.
Oh, Tony
part
Todd,
in a really,
great.
But since I've already had a blank check, I went, well, I got to get one of the all-time greatest actors in Ian McKellen out there. So I just thought that it would be. That's my version.
I kind of want to see Tony Todd in that now that you said that. I'm going to change it on my list. So I can be like, actually, I'm taking Tony Todd.
Christmas 2024, folks, get ready. It's coming to theaters near you. Hopefully, then we'll do an episode on the Nostalgia Cinema about it.
Yes. So I'm going to give you my casting. It's a little bit different.
Okay.
I kind of did the same thing. Like, I didn't want to... I like the setting of London in its time, of when it's supposed to be in Dickens' world, but, like, I didn't feel as committed to going, well, it has to be British actors. Get a voice coach, it's fine. Like, or whatever. So, for the nephew, I had Tom Holland.
Oh, very,
Scrooge's
yes.
nephew.
Just for the record, I had James McAvoy. I skipped that over on my...
Oh, that's good casting, too.
Got
I
it,
like
okay.
that. So you're going to see, my casting leans a little bit younger.
I was going to say, yeah. Okay.
So Tom Holland.
Does Tom Holland have the family then? Oh, wait, you said the nephew. I'm sorry. Yeah, he works very well as the nephew. Yeah, because he
would be just
married. He
married.
works great as the nephew,
Yeah.
yes.
So my Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, Oscar Isaac.
Oh, okay.
Would you not look into those eyes and go, all right, man, whatever you say.
You're hoping to be visited by that ghost, aren't you?
I wouldn't complain. My Ghost of Christmas Present, Awkwafina.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I like that.
I was thinking about performances this year that I was, like, really impressed by, and I thought she was incredible in Shang-Chi, and, like, I could see, again, that kind of comedic, like, I love her comedic tones, but she does some, like, really wonderful things in Shang-Chi towards the end of the film that I was just like, I don't know, I could kind of see her in that. It wouldn't be the same stature as, I think, the more traditional versions of Ghost, because she's obviously diminutive compared to, like, someone... you're casting, but and like the people that you listed, but I was like, I feel like she could work. My Ghost of Christmas Past, Amanda Seyfried.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yes. That's why I said, I'm like, yes, I can see that.
What are the odds?
I don't know. I'm like, of all the actors.
One brain, folks. Sometimes one brain.
My Bob Cratchit, I have as Sam Richardson. So Sam Richardson this year was in Werewolves Within. If you are a Ted Lasso fan, you would know him as Edwin Akufo, who
Yes.
So, and I'm sorry if you haven't seen season 2, you'll meet his character. I don't know. There's something about him, and I actually see this more in Werewolves Within, where it's like, I just see him having that really, like, heartfelt, like, still kind of believes in the good in people, like, clearly, like, devoted family person. I just see him very much in that role.
Yeah, I see that, definitely.
My Marley. All right, and you got to think more recent with this, and you got to stick with me. Nicolas Cage.
I'm good with that.
Okay, because it was like in Pig.
I'm all about the Cage-a-sance. I'm here for.
I was like picturing it, and I'm like, he would make such a great Ghost of Martin.
Yes,
like, right?
Yes, he would.
All right, now,
so do you want, like, a more contained Cage, or do you want, like...
I want big Cage.
You want big Cage energy.
Big Cage.
Okay.
I want Cage as cagey as he gets. Okay. I want face-off Cage.
All right, you want, like, Mandy Cage. I gotcha. All right.
Face-off Cage. I'm doing a thing with my eyes. He doesn't know the reference because he's never seen it. But yeah, exactly. Okay. Now, here, I was really thinking about my Scrooge. And I'm going to be honest. Actually, at one point, I had Nicolas Cage cast as my Scrooge. So I was thinking about this in, like, relative ages, and I was thinking about, like, kind of my feelings about Bill Murray and why he works so well, because it's someone, like, a little bit younger. So I went with someone younger, and it's an actor that I think could play a really harsh intensity, but the redemption would be so believable, and that's Daniel Kaluuya.
Oh, nice. I like it.
As soon as you said him, I was like, dang it, Tussie, he's coming up for me. And I know, like, the relative ages here, like, I tried to, like, put everyone in portion, but I don't know. This is just a cast I see, because I could see Daniel Kaluuya, like, being incredibly intense, but I just picture his sensitive eyes when that redemption happens being so gratifying.
So you have to rework your version a little bit, though, because you don't have the weight of time on Scrooge's shoulders.
No, my envisioning of this would be that this is someone who rose to their wealth and status quickly, is grasping to it, but is almost has more bitterness than his age should allow.
Gotcha. Okay, I like it. I want to see your version too. We could put it out in 2024. We could do like an Armageddon, Deep Impact, like 2 Christmas Carol movies right at the same time, although some of our castings overlap.
Yeah. And one of the versions will be good and the other one will be subpar.
I got
That's it. You Deep Impact and Armageddon.
I'm a Deep Impact guy.
I'm an Armageddon gal.
Oh, all right.
Maybe an upcoming episode.
I'm really happy that we're ending our Christmas episode talking about mid-90s action movies.
That's the gift that keeps on giving.
That it is, Edward. That it is.
So if you're not currently following us on social media, please follow us at How Could You Podcast on Instagram, at How Could You Pod on Twitter. You can always send thoughts and suggestions at howcouldyoupodcast@gmail.com. Please follow us on our social media pages to find out about our upcoming engagements at the Civic Theater. Our first one, again, will be on January 29th, and tickets are currently on sale.
And as we finish up, may we leave you with this during this holiday season, a passage from A Christmas Carol. I have always thought of Christmas time as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time, the only time I know of in the long calendar of the year, when men and women seem by one consent to open up their shut-up hearts freely and to think of the people below them as if they really were fellow passengers to the grave, and not another rare of creatures bound on other journeys. And therefore, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe it has done me good and will do me good, and I say, God bless it. From the How Could You podcast, Merry Christmas to all, Happy Holidays, and enjoy the Odyssey.